Oil, it was nice seeing you yesterday at the Babylon Street Fair. Again, I'm Tom Bruckner. I'm professor of geology and astronomy at Nassau Community College. I'm the chairperson of the Physical Sciences Department, and I studied geology, mainly coastal morphology, at Binghamton and Stony Brook. So this is my wheelhouse. This is my background, and my major area of study was these ill-fated 11 and then 4 groins randomly placed off a dune road in the Hamptons, and how man-made structures affect the littoral, aka longshore, transport of sand from the east to the west. And excuse me if you already know this, I apologize, but just a brief overview. The wave action comes this way. It's a predominantly southeast wave. It picks up sand, and then the wave action brings it back out to sea. So if everything works out right, an equal amount of sand enters and an equal amount of sand leaves. And that way you don't have a deficit on the beach or a growing beach or so on. But because they did this wrong, you really want to, if you're going to do groins, you're going to do groins continuously, not just in areas. They should have started near New York City and headed all the way east. They did not do that. They've since filled these in or taken these out or whatever, but I don't know what year this picture is on Google, and I'll say that for the rest of them, but you can see how it affects here because there's deposition on the east side, and then there's erosion on the west part of the beach. And I think this is, you have an understanding of the riprap at the Coast Guard station acting like a groin, but I just want to show you why it doesn't actually make that much of a difference in this environment. So I'm gonna zoom out, bring us over to our area, and I want to show you what I perceive as being the problem with this whole system. Now, if you know anything about the history of this Jones Beach Island here, there was a whole bunch of inlets, and Robert Moses filled them in for Ocean Parkway. But you can see most of the barrier islands do this continuous straight thing all the way through Long Beach. And if I zoom back, you can see it. It's fairly continuous, and this is just on a very strange angle. And a lot of it has to do with the sand movement. And as you know, the inlet used to be where the lighthouse was. And over the course of decades, it wasn't even hundreds of years, it was decades, Robert Moses State Park grew all the way out here. And at some point, there was a jetty put right here to stop the sand movement. Look what has happened at Democrat Point. There's sand deposition right here. The sand has actually bypassed the jetty. And I don't know how deep the jetty goes, but the sand has bypassed it and has deposited over here. And although it's really not, it's more apparent actually from the beach than the satellite picture, there is sand deposition through here that would continue on here from this jetty. Now there's currents coming out of the inlet, and this deposition would continue, and basically what you're going to have is a sandbar forming out here, and you're going to have a new barrier island eventually show up. It's going to build up, build up, build up, and then at low tide you'll see it occasionally, and over time, and it all depends on how often we dredge or chew this up. If you just left it, within maybe even just 10 years, there'd be a new barrier island forming. When you stand on Cedar Beach or Overlook, you can see waves breaking far out. They don't break over here. I mean, I know people like that. They like the lack of wave action, especially if you have little kids. But this sand right here is staying. And the reason why it's staying is because the wave action has stopped, because the waves are breaking out here, and then the water gets calm, which allows more deposition here from the movement out of the inlet. You can see the sand being robbed over here, right? You can see how the sand's being robbed off a sore thumb and so on. And then it gets deposited here, and it doesn't continue westward like the rest of the sand has. So this is what I'm saying is the problem area. This whole area around the inlet, the deposition of offshore sand, preventing wave action to move the sand down the beach. So you can see the big sand buildup over at Cedar Beach, right? It's very apparent, and I explained how the waves are breaking over this sandbar, which, again, I don't know what year this picture is, but if you go at Cedar Beach when there is a storm or waves, you could see the waves breaking out here, and it's really calm at Cedar Beach. So now I want to take you, and if you look in the same scale, do you really see the Coast Guard station or the effect of the Coast Guard station? Not really. I mean, when you zoom in, you can say, oh yeah, well, here's the Coast Guard station. You can see some sand build up on the side here, and it's robbing a little bit of the sand over here. That's true. But my point is, you can remove this and even out the sand a little bit more, but you're not going to get that much. It's not going to be that much of a difference. So is it worth removing the Coast Guard station in hopes that sand will be fed to Gilgo or West Gilgo Beach? I'd say no. Is it worth removing for safety issues? Yeah. I mean, there's rebar just sticking straight out of the water, and this is a big surf beach right now. This is one of the best spots to surf, the Coast Guard station. And I had the 4x4 permit, and I enjoyed driving here and parking here and surfing with people, and I know that's gone away since the erosion. But let me zoom back out. The real issue is the sand for here is stuck right here. And again, the reason why is because Democrat Point is overshot. Sand is getting put out into the water. A sandbar is forming. I mean, you could see some of the high spots of it, but there's sand forming out here. That's preventing the wave action. The wave action is preventing the sand from moving down here. And then you get wave action over here and hemlocks and then over by the Coast Guard station. And that wave action has nothing to replace it, so it's pulling sand away and bringing it down. Some of it does get trapped by the Coast Guard station, but you can tell it's really not that big of a deal. And that's robbing the rest of this beach of sand. So hopefully that cleared it up a little bit. That's my take on it. Again, I mean, take it as you will. I studied this stuff. This is my area of expertise. I teach classes on this at college. So if you want to have a solution, really what you want to do is you want to dredge out this sandbar to return wave action to Cedar Beach to move the sand. But ultimately, this is really the main problem, this whole inlet system. It's always been an awkward inlet as it is, but you can see how the sand is now depositing on the other side of the jetty. That normally doesn't happen. And let me just take it over here, and you can see here's West End 2. Here's the Jones Beach Inlet. You can see how the sand is built up, and it's overshooting here. And if you go to Point Lookout, there's no wave action at Point Lookout. I heard people used to tell me they surfed at Point Lookout years ago. And there's a sandbar forming out here, which breaks up the wave action. So again, you're having a similar situation in Point Lookout, but in this time, there's not a lot of sand movement out of this area to put more sand on Point Lookout. Plus, they have jetties and groins and everything to hold whatever sand they have in. They're a little bit more, have man-made structures on the beach to control it. So, but you can see it all along the coast. I mean, you can see it even here too, by Atlantic Beach. But that's the problem with inlets. That's the problem with trying to hold nature back with man-made structures. But if you want to, if it's a concern to bring sand back to Gilgo, dredging the inlet, but also dredging the sandbar out, and I would even say take this out if that's something that's feasible. I'd say take out all the sand that's west of this jetty. Just get rid of it and move it along, and then return to natural wave action. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. You have my phone number now, my email address. I'm basically free on Fridays, so if you need to talk to me, you could always email me too. I answer my emails right away. So thank you for watching and listening, and I hope that may help with some policy ideas. Thanks.